Hello again, and welcome to another episode of the Backlot 605 box office, or however we want to call it. I don't know. Well,
We'll
I'll,
change it
I'll
every week.
well,
See if
well,
people notice.
right. Let's see if I notice. Um, I am your host, Brian Mensing, and joining me as always is our resident historian and coming soon guru, Derrick Veurink. How you doing this evening?
I'm doing excellent, and I know you're doing excellent too.
We are doing great. You're sporting the shirt of why we're in such a good mood because we just had the opportunity to go to the local state theater and experience the entire trilogy that is Back to the Future on the big screen.
Yep,
Uh,
it was a total blast to see all three of those movies on the big screen. I know I had done it before, but I know this was the first time you had done it, Brian.
yeah,
And I know this was for both of us a big item on our state wish list. So I'm glad
it,
we finally got to do it.
it very much so, definitely. And I applaud the state for willing to take it out and it's basically an entire day
Yep.
for one, that's a little bit of a niche, as opposed to, mixing up the day for screens and whatnot. So I thought that was absolutely amazing. The minute we found out that we were going to be getting a Back to the Future trilogy, for me, it wasn't even matter. It wasn't even a question. It was just, when do I need to show up? So I applaud them. I thank you. And yes, just riding high. I know. And
Yeah.
for being on this planet for 43 years, you'd think I would at least seen one of them on the big screen, but it's just if in 85 when the first one came out, I just wasn't old enough to be going to go see that movie at the theater. And
Yep. Well, now it's
part
taken
th-
care of.
right, yeah, only part 3 is the only one I'd seen in the theater, but
Okay.
we're good. Yes. So on that, we are going to talk this week's box office here, and obviously as no surprise, because there really wasn't a whole lot going on this week. It's still kind of quiet. Is we have Spider-Man's No Way Home coming in at number one again at $52.7 million. If memory serves me correctly, Derek, this is a less of a dip than it was the week previous, correct? Kind of we're
That
falling into that holiday thing, whatever, because nobody is at school right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's partially the holiday. Again, this covers New Year's Eve, Friday, New Year's Day, Saturday, and of course, Sunday. Um, Obviously, the week one to week two drop was going to be really huge because, again, as we talked about last week, everybody, or I shouldn't say everybody, but a lot of the fans were going to come out as soon as possible to see this movie, whether it be opening preview Thursday night or opening day Friday. But it was
Mm-hmm.
just going to have such a huge impact that that's how it got to $260 million on that opening weekend. So
Right.
it was going to plummet a little bit, even though it was Christmas weekend on week two. Again, some stabilization here. Again, this is only a 38% drop, which is pretty good. Again, you have to keep in mind, I mean, no matter what, we're going to see fairly decent drops on the Spider-Man weekends going forward because, again, it's just one of those movies that tends to be very front-loaded.
Mm-hmm.
But again, we've gotten very far here because, again, we're basically at $610 million after 17 days, as you can see here. That actually places it at number 10 on the all-time domestic box office list, not
Mm-hmm.
adjusted for inflation. The previous number 10 was Incredibles 2, which did like 608, I think. So it's in pretty good company. The next two movies that are right above it, which are in like the 620 million range, are The Last Jedi and the 2012 Marvel Avengers movie. So it's
So there,
quickly rising up the ranks.
so there's a chance that the Disney Sony is still going to take out some more Disney. So it's not Disney just likes owning that top 10. It just seems like.
Yep, I mean that's their raison d'etre, and again we'll talk about that a little bit in the box office bonus episode that'll come out tomorrow, which will be the 2021 year in review, where we'll prove Brian's point about just how much Disney has dominated the box office, even in a year like this. So.
Mm-hmm. Maybe that's one of those things that's some studios maybe they may not necessarily like Disney, but maybe they need to take a few cues from Disney because clearly Disney's doing something that's bringing in those dollars.
Yep, yep.
All right, so going in at number 2 is Sing 2. at a $19.6 million, only a 12% drop, which is really good. But like you
Hmm.
said before, for the sake of the demographic that this movie is really aiming for, there's really nothing in the box office right now with kids being out of school for Christmas break and stuff like that. This is the perfect movie for a movie to take behind Spider-Man.
Oh yeah, I mean, again, just like the first Thing, which came out in 2016, that was also coming out right before Christmas, so this kind of has that holiday vibe of sorts to it, even though there's not really holiday content in the movie itself. But
Hmm.
again, it is the dominant animated movie. I mean, some theaters are still showing Encanto, but again, Encanto is also a Disney Plus right now, so if you're going to go to the
Right.
theater to watch a kids movie, you're probably coming out to watch this. Um, and again, it's doing fine, I think. I did the comparison earlier today for my own personal box office notes. And in the same 2 weekend time frame, the first Thing got up to like $166 million
Hmm.
compared to the 90 that we're at for Sing 2. So there's clearly been a bit of a drop. Um, and it's not entirely clear what might be the cause of that, if it's Omicron or if people weren't as interested in a sequel to Sing for whatever reason. But it's it's still doing fine. Again, to the best of my recollection, there isn't any major family movies coming out theatrically in the entire month of January. So
Okay.
I think we're really going to see this movie pull some legs because of that.
Hmm.
So we'll just kind of see how that plays out. In fact, I don't even think there's if I actually, now that I'm thinking about it deeper, the next animated movie that's coming out is Pixar's Turning Red, which is on March 11.
I was gonna say that's still a
So
couple months away.
yeah, so Sing 2, if it can hold on, and again, depending how quickly Universal wants to pull the VOD trigger, because we're
Hmm.
still not sure when that's going to happen. Sing 2 could have some decent legs in theaters depending upon how Universal wants to play this out. So we definitely know it's going to get over 100 million by the time we talk about this on next week's show.
Yeah.
Just a matter of how long it can go beyond that.
I would be curious as if, if this keeps of one of those slow, slight decline like the 12% that we have here this week, or if it, like you said, I mean, if we don't have it, to see if maybe if it gets to that point where, it just stays pretty level to the point where, even have a slight uptick, if there is no other, animated movie and people want to get the kids out for the weekend.
Yeah, I think we'll see a bit bigger drop next week because, again, this past weekend, Friday was New Year's Eve. The kids weren't in school. The kids will definitely be back in school this coming Friday. So
Hmm.
that'll have a little bit of a hit on it. Or even like Sunday night will be a school night. So that'll also hit into it too. But, I still think, to my point, it's going to have quite a bit of runway, certainly throughout the entire month of January,
Oh,
just for
definitely.
various reasons. So,
Yeah. All right. So number three, we have The King's Man at $4.5 million in week two, 24% drop. Like we've said before from last week and whatnot, this one wasn't coming into the box office strong anyway.
nope.
So I mean, I think this is actually doing pretty good considering the fact that your average, consistent drop is usually in your 30 to 40s, if not 50 and more. So to only take a 24% drop, I think is actually pretty good considering.
Yeah, I mean, I should note first off that last weekend the Kingsman was number 4 in the box office, and
Oh,
this
that's
weekend it's
true.
actually gone up a spot. And we'll get into the reason for why that happened in a little bit, which has nothing to do with this particular movie. I think the reason why we might be seeing a good drop on this is one, because it didn't start strong in the first place,
Right.
but two, I think also this might be like this probably isn't anybody's like first choice or even second choice for a movie to go to.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have a weekend like this where nothing's opening and people are figuring out, well, we already saw Spider Man, we might have already seen Sing 2, we might have already seen The Matrix, what's left? And
Yep.
that's why where people might come in and say, we'll try out the Kingsman. We know the franchise, that might be good enough. So it'll make some scraps. Again, it's still going to be the lowest performing movie in the Kingsman franchise by far. Because again, the first two Kingsman movies both got to the 100 million mark, and this movie will barely clear 30 if I had to guess.
Yeah.
Um, so again, not great, but again, there are reasons for this in terms of it being a long-term Fox holdover from the Disney merger. So there's that. I'm sure we'll definitely see it in the box office for probably another week or two, I'd guess, but at least in the top 5. But, again, not really making a huge impact regardless, especially for the Christmas movie season where stuff like this should play pretty lucratively. And again, like many of the other Fox movies we talked about, like West Side Story or Nightmare Alley, it just isn't really posting the numbers you would hope. So,
no, at this point right now, it just feels like Disney is just like, we just need to get them out so we can get them over with. It's not like they've really financed them basically outside of but when they basically acquired them through the merger, essentially.
yeah, pretty much.
At this point right now, they're just like, how do we just need to get them released and whatnot. So
exactly.
yeah. And the other thing I would say too is I think if word of mouth has anything to do with for this movie and whatnot, is those that do see it that are fans of the franchise, like I mentioned last week here, is that if you are a fan of the franchise, it does allude to the way the franchise is. But if you're going to compare it to the Taron Egerton ones, it's apples and oranges. I mean, they're both fruit, but they're definitely not the same kind of movies.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen various movie friends of mine log the movie on Letterboxd because they finally got out to it in the last few days. And the general consensus with them has been, to quote Casey, it's fine. So, I mean, it's a time filler, nothing more. I don't think it's really garnering any passion from anybody who's seen it, which isn't helping matters either. But again, if you need to fill the time and you've already seen all the other movies you're interested in, that's where this is going to come into play. So
exactly. All right, going in at number 4, we have the American Underdog at $4.08 million in its second week at 31%. Considering this is a very niche movie, and considering where we're going with whatnot, I don't think this is actually all that bad, actually, to be honest.
No, again, I mean, this is, as we talked about last week, this is kind of one of those slow burn movies that's gonna, draw out the Midwestern crowd very gradually. Whenever they show up, again, it's not like a Spidey type movie where people are going to rush out to it right away.
Mm-hmm.
And again, certainly for the crowd that this is aiming for, there isn't any like movies coming out in the next few weeks to kind of to really impact it. Just like with the Kingsman, this went up a spot from last week. Last week it was number 5. This weekend it's number 4. So again, this is, I think, much more so than the Kingsman, this is a movie that's going to benefit from word of mouth. Again, I'm still kind of holding out the hope that maybe next weekend American Underdog can actually top the Kingsman if things would work out. I think that's still kind of a long shot, but
it's
still
doable.
Possible. Yes,
it's I agree with you. I'd say it is a long shot or whatnot, or in football terms, it's a Hail Mary. No,
because again, American. Yeah, I mean, as we'll talk about in a little bit, American Underdog actually topped a movie from last week to get to this spot. So it is kind of overtaking the competition a little bit. So Kingsman might be next on its hit list. We'll see. So
who would have ever thought Zachary Levi would do that and not wear a spandex superhero outfit and doing it in the process?
Yep.
All right, and coming in at number 5, The Matrix Resurrections at $3.83 million with a 68% drop. And this is doing exactly what you and I expected it to, basically. At least for me anyway, is those that are going to go see it in the theater, saw it in the theater. If they were going to go any rewatches or anything like that, if they're going to watch it, they're going to go watch it at home.
Yeah, and on top of that also, I mean, as we talked about a little bit last weekend, The Matrix Resurrections has not had very overtly positive word of mouth from audiences.
Mm-hmm.
The reaction has been very mixed to it, which isn't helping things. And again, if you have that volatile word of mouth, you're probably thinking, oh, well, I'm just going to mitigate the risk and just watch it on HBO Max. And again, to the point of this being an HBO Max movie, we've seen this with a whole bunch of other Warner Brothers movies over the course of the past year. Well, they'll have these big, like 65 to 70% drops in weekend 2, just because that dichotomy between the people who are going to go out to see it in the theater and the people who are going to watch it on HBO Max. So that, combined with the nature of this being a Matrix sequel in the first place and all the audience response that comes along with that, this isn't really surprising.
No.
Granted, certainly in a pre-pandemic world, Warner Brothers would have had a lot of hope for this to be a much bigger performer than it is. As it is standing right now, it's at 31 million. It's definitely not going to clear 40 million at the rate that it's going. So it's falling apart here very quickly. We won't even be talking about this in the top 5 next weekend. I can guarantee you that right now.
Then something weird, crazy happens, but I agree with you. More than likely, this isn't going to be even part of the conversation next week.
Nope, not at all. So,
all right. So with that, our top 5 for the week: Spider-Man: No Way Home, $52.7 million. Not surprising at all. Number 2 is Sing 2 at $19.6 million. The King's Man comes in at number 3 at $4.5 million. The American Underdog comes in number 4 at $4.08 million. And The Matrix Resurrections comes in at number 5 at $3.83 million. So, I mean, not a horrible weekend. I mean, again, I think it's part of it is that Spider-Man is still kind of basically taking most of the box office and whatnot, and just
yep.
Everybody else just trying to pick up what scraps for those that have already seen Spider-Man, basically.
Exactly.
All right. So, you did want to bring up here that next weekend we have got 2 new releases. One of which I'm familiar with. I've actually seen trailer for, and I'm intrigued by. And the other one, I'm like, it almost feels like a typing error when you put it on here.
No, and I'll get to that.
Yeah.
But first, let's talk about the one we do know. Coming out this weekend is the first big American movie release of 2022, The 355, the all-female spy action flick starring Jessica Chastain and Lupita Nyong'o and Diane Kruger and Penelope Cruz. This was a movie that was supposed to come out last January. I remember seeing trailers for this before Tenet, if I recall correctly, or at least the trailer came out right around when Tenet first came out. So again, this has kind of been hopping around for a while. This apparently is a pet project of Jessica Chastain. It's directed by Simon Kinberg, the longtime Marvel producer at Fox, who made his directing debut with Dark Phoenix back in 2019. Which already strikes some fear in the hearts of moviegoers right there.
Right.
But apparently Jessica Chastain must have liked him enough from when they filmed that movie to have her to recruit him to do this. So I don't have high expectations from the box office for this. This will definitely finish below Spidey and Sing 2. It's just a matter of how much it can kind of grab for those who have kind of already tapped out on all the Christmas releases and are looking for something new. So
yeah. I am intrigued because I like the idea of the all-female spy team kind of thing going on with this here. So, I'm hoping. I mean, if there's one thing that we can always attest to is that yeah, sometimes you look at a director's filmography and go, we're in for something horrible, but this could be that. This could be that undiscovered gem that we're going to finally go, oh, hey, you know what? He actually can make a really good movie, and here's a really good movie that he actually made. So I guess we'll see. I mean, because there's been no reviews released yet for this movie. Yeah, is there?
No, I don't expect those to drop until Wednesday or Thursday of this
Yeah.
week, right before. So we shall see.
Yeah. So what is the RRR?
Yeah, so I'm just calling it Triple R. So
Triple
this
R.
popped up on the schedule at the Sioux Falls Century 14. It is an Indian Bollywood movie, a period action drama that's 3 hours long.
Oh
The
my.
only reason I put it on this list, well, I guess there are 2 reasons. One is we've seen enough with these, movies, from India that kind of have, momentum behind it and can kind of garner like 1 million or 2 million on opening weekend in the US.
Mm-hmm.
So again, considering what we're seeing right now with Matrix and American Underdog and The Kingsman, where they're in that 3 to 4 million zone, if those movies drop to like 1 to 2 million next weekend, maybe this slides into the top 5. It's hard to say. The other reason I put it on the list is because at Century 14, this is going to be opening on 3 screens at the Century 14, including the XD auditorium.
Really?
which is really rare for movies from India to get our largest screen in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. So I have to wonder if there's actually a lot of big demand for this. I'm not entirely sure, but I at least just wanted to put it in here so that I'd rather you be surprised now by it instead of
Sure.
next weekend if we have to talk about it because it hits the top five and then you're wondering what the heck is this. At least you'll feel a little bit more informed because I'm calling it out now. So
Amongst for everybody, be like, okay, what is this movie? Absolutely.
so
So that has been our box office for this week. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe the video, and make sure to follow us because we like to tell you all sorts of fun goodies and all that stuff throughout everything here. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Letterbox HQ as well. In Facebook, we also have the South Dakota Film Community Group. Join the conversation. Filmmakers, film enthusiasts, film lovers, just everybody that likes to talk about movies, including Derrick likes to be able to show us how old we really do feel when he starts showing out some of those nice anniversaries of when movies have been released.
I know it's really saddening when you think of something like Pan's Labyrinth as 15 years ago. It's insane and wild, but here we are. So,
Wow, that has been 15 years. Holy goodness.
yep.
One of these days I'll get around to watching it.
Oh,
All
wow.
right. I know, right? And also too, be sure to check out the podcast. You can find us out on Apple, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, Amazon, and you can check out our pretty faces on clearly YouTube here. And also to be sure to support the show on Patreon. Go visit us at patreon.com/backlot605, where you can subscribe and get bonus episodes and just get more content and so that you can help support the show. Um,
Yeah.
th- that being said, what are we expected to talk about? You touched on a little bit here, but what are we going to talk about a little bit here come tomorrow here, Derek?
Yeah. So, obviously, 2021 is in the books, 2022 has started. And because 2021 has been one of these very interesting box office years where it started with theaters closed and movies making hardly any money for those theaters that are open, to
Mm-hmm.
basically see the box office recover bit by bit by bit over the course of the year, it felt appropriate to do a little 2021 year in review at the box office, see what were the actual biggest performers box office wise, touch a little bit about, how the frequent dual release strategy helped or hindered movies, and even some fun local stuff that we'll get into too. So that'll be a very fun episode. So tune into that tomorrow, same bat time, same bat channel, wherever you're watching this, either on YouTube or Facebook.
Yeah, definitely. All right. That being said, that has been your box office for today. For the new box office, come check us out next week. And then again, like I said, check out our bonus episode here. Come here tomorrow. Other than that, everybody have a great night.
See ya.